Welcome to another episode of Community Storytelling, Season 4. Linda Lester. Because of you, I'm sitting in this chair, so thank you so much. Make sure you stop by Leicester Square. I have a great guest today who has many stories to tell, so we're going to start with one and then move on to another. And one story she's going to share is a story that a lot of people would never want to talk about. A secret that perhaps you've had for many years, and maybe you'll come out and start revealing some things about you as well, because you'll see how important it really is. Alison Davis, you go by Al. Should I call you Al?
Al is
okay, because I feel like we're friends.
Exactly.
And I feel like we're friends because of this fabulous article you wrote in the Huffington Post that I've read over and over again, because even though you and I do not share the same problem, it touched me so, because during the pandemic, how many times did you drive home in a rush or run into your house because you had to go to the bathroom? Because during the height of the pandemic, you couldn't use a public bathroom. One, you couldn't do it, and one, you wouldn't want to. So I don't know how many times I would be running home from the grocery store and saying, I just got to go, don't talk to me, running to the bathroom. Well, you have that problem all the time.
Right.
So let's start at the beginning. At age 14, what happened to you?
At age 14, I was on a family vacation, and I threw up all over my brother in the back seat of our rental car.
And maybe the best person to throw up on, right?
I don't know if he'd say that. Yeah. And then that continued. We shared a motel room, and he started putting a wastebasket in between our beds. This was right before I was going to start the 9th grade, so right before high school. And things progressed from there. I started school. And then, Lisa, it was mostly about throwing up. The diarrhea came later. It came along in high school, but the first thing was the throwing up.
And how easy it to say diarrhea. You're so used to it now, but something nobody would ever talk about.
No, it's still hard for me.
I
really
bet.
is. And I appreciate your wanting to have me on your show.
I can talk about anything.
I know,
and
you told me that.
And it's a fact of life. And I think by having you here, so you have Crohn's disease.
I do.
At what age were you finally diagnosed with it?
About 16.
And I can't tell you how many people I'm meeting now who tell me they have Crohn's disease. Mm-hmm. Are we smarter now? Or, how are so many more people being diagnosed with it now?
Well, there's a rise in it.
Because of processed food, maybe?
Don't know. Or more people are self-identifying, more doctors maybe are diagnosing it. But Crohn's disease and its sister disease, ulcerative colitis, about 3 million people in the country now have it. And I also think those ads on TV for different medicines to take as infusions for Crohn's and ulcerative colitis have increased awareness.
Now, is celiac related? Because there's so many people who have that as well.
Not to my knowledge, but some of the symptoms are the same.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
So you're growing up with this terrible disease, and it is it can kill you. It's a terrible disease. I remember
Yes.
High school kids, when my daughters were in high school, missing months of school because of Crohn's disease. So it's serious, and it causes problems. It causes problems. You could have the urge to go to the bathroom in a moment's notice.
That's right. Excuse me. No, I'm.
Do you have your card? And so when I'm reading your article, first of all, it was wonderful. And you can Google it. Google Alison Davis, Crohn's disease, Huffington Post.
Or just Huffington Post diarrhea.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
There you go. Okay. What month was it first published? Do you remember?
May 25th.
May. And you wrote it because of the pandemic.
I thought the pandemic was a good springboard for exactly the reason you just talked about.
Always having, yes.
Yes.
Mine was a minor problem compared to yours.
Yes.
But, it could be either or.
Right.
And so it's a great story. And the things you talked about. I did not know, that there was an American Restroom Association.
I didn't either.
Who knew?
I didn't either.
And do they watch out for people like you?
Yes, to a degree, but they actually, interestingly, they've focused a lot more on people peeing and having that need, which is a completely valid thing.
And I'm proud to say that was my problem,
Right.
not the
Yeah.
other one.
and bathroom access. But after being in conversation with them, I think they're going to focus more on the diarrhea end of things too.
I did not know there was a card that you could get that says, I've got to go now. And I think you get that from the Crohn's
and Colitis Foundation of America.
I mean, who knew that? Did you know that? If you need a card like that, because it goes into, it's in big letters, and then it has details, you know, I got to go.
Right.
I have an ailment. I've got to go.
Right.
I mean, how did you grow up with that? You went to Stanford.
I did.
You lived on campus.
I did.
I'm sure you had, well, you did. You said in the Huffington Post you had many close calls.
Well, you know, actually at Stanford, the one I talked about is the main one I remember. And then a friend of mine reminded me of another one. My close calls have been throughout my life, but I could go a year or two, and that definitely happened in college, where I don't have a close call. But when you look at the fact that I've had this disease for decades now, I have had a lot of episodes looking back.
And not only did you have close calls involving you, you had 3 children
Yes.
in car seats.
Yes.
So you got to go, they got to go with you.
That's right.
You got to get them out.
That's right.
I mean, oh my goodness. And here
That's
we
right.
are laughing about it.
Right.
I don't think you were laughing at the time, or
No,
maybe you were.
No. Laughter's been good, and you asked how I also have a strong faith, and so I would say laughter, my faith, and feeling there's a reason for this, that God knows what's up, you know, has helped me a lot, and family and very long time friends who have known me actually since before I had the disease.
But you know, the embarrassments you had to suffer, going into a store and saying, you know, I got to go to the bathroom, and
Yeah.
they look at you and say, so what? And
Yeah.
then you have to go into a little more detail and say, no, I have to go to the bathroom.
Right, and most of the, you know, I only knew about this card maybe a decade or so ago, and I remember one episode where I was in a stationery store, and the employees were not allowed to have, you know, an outsider use the restroom, which is still an issue that a lot of states are grappling with. In some states now you can legally use the bathroom. And,
I would think so. I would hope so.
And luckily I was in a shopping mall where there was a Safeway, but I mean, I barely made it.
Well, and how receptive have people been to your problem? When you come up and explain it to them, did you still have people say, hey, I'm sorry?
You know, that was maybe the only time. Honestly, people have been, and I detailed a few kindnesses of stranger examples in my article. People are either they're like, get out, okay. They see the desperate look on my face, and they're like, sure, lady, I'll keep your bags. It's right over there. Or they're just really kind, sure. Because the bottom line is, it's something that everybody has dealt with at some point in their life. And I said in the article, I quoted the fact that every adult American has diarrhea, acute diarrhea, at least once a year. But nobody wants to talk about it.
Of course not.
Yeah.
Did you get any feedback from Huffington Post or from readers
Yes.
that you changed their life or you helped them?
Oh,
or?
yes.
Tell us. Tell
Very
about some
definitely.
of those comments you got.
I got one comment actually from someone in Los Gatos who said one of her daughters had been treated for thyroid cancer, and some of the medications had caused her a lot of diarrhea, and that she maybe needed to have more open communication with one of her siblings about it, and that article springboarded that.
Wow.
So that's wonderful. Heard from somebody who has celiac disease and just said, thank you so much. I feel less alone. A lot of things like that. Someone saying, Allison, I've been waiting for this article for my entire life.
I bet.
Thank you so much. And a lot of people, one woman, as I used to be, well into her 50s, who had never talked to a single soul about it. The fact of the diarrhea or having Crohn's disease. She said she'd never known anyone who admitted to having Crohn's disease. That's how much shame is attached to it.
Isn't that amazing? Because I do have some girlfriends, and one in particular, and we go out, and she says, you know what, I just need to sit next to the restroom.
Yeah.
Nobody ever wants to sit at that table that's so
Right.
close to the restroom, but
Right.
she says, that's the table I want to sit
yeah.
at. I mean, it's so amazing how your words that you wrote, though, can end shame. I mean, it was such a wonderful article.
Oh, thank you.
And like I said, just understand. I mean, and was there any other reason why you wanted to write it?
I wanted people to feel less alone, but I'm still working on using my own voice more. And I will say a plug for my wonderful editor at Huffington Post, Noah Michelson. I rewrote it 3 times because he kept wanting more. And in a lovely way, I was sort of pushed to dig deeper because part of me I feel on a mission, if you will, to write and talk more about this, but there's a big part of me that still doesn't want to. I did not learn how to spell Crohn's disease until I'd had it about 30 years, and here I am, an editor and a writer. I did not learn how to really spell diarrhea.
Well, that's a tough one.
It
is.
Tough
one anyway.
It is. Until I wrote this article, because a part of me just wanted to push it to the side, and I've been taught to do that. I've been taught not to talk about it because society doesn't want to.
And how has your family been reacting to all of this? Because now everybody knows Mom has Crohn's disease.
My kids, certainly one of them said, no big news to me. This is what it's like to grow up with the mom with Crohn's disease.
Yes.
And another one was really proud of me and posted a beautiful statement on Facebook about just so proud of my mom because this is such a brave thing to do.
Well, and so many millions suffer from Crohn's disease.
Yes.
It's not as unusual as you might think. Perhaps you haven't heard of it. I'm guessing you have heard of it because it's been so prevalent the last few years at least.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's great.
Thank you.
And I was sort of excited when you said, I'd like to talk about it.
Yeah.
It's good to get these things out. And like I said, words can end shame.
That's
and
right.
And it's a lengthy article because it talks about your life from the age of 14. And look at you, you're a survivor. And not only a survivor, I think you've conquered it.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, right?
We're holding our own here.
Well, say again, how do you get I need to go now card? How do you get that? Tell us again.
Okay, so if you are someone with Crohn's and colitis, you call the Crohns and Colitis Foundation and request one. And if you look at my article, you will see the exact number that you're supposed to call because it's under the photo of that card.
Or you can always Google. You Google everything these days. We'll give you the phone number.
Right. And I would encourage the people with celiac disease, people with IBS, people who are on certain medications, Google the association that's connected with your or a loved one's disease and see if they have a similar card.
It's great. I never knew. And you stick it in your purse or your car or whatever, although you were without it one time.
Many times.
You needed it.
But I have used it a really nice place where bathrooms for women tend not to be numerous, are stadiums, like football stadiums.
Yes.
And I've never had a problem. Women are always like, go for it.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Because we've all been there.
Exactly.
For whatever reason, we've all been there.
Exactly.
But there's so much more to you. I said that Alison has many stories. I mean, you have done so much with your writing career. You went to Stanford, and the next thing you know, you're doing the disability project. I'm not saying it right. I mean, tell me about that.
Disability at Stanford Oral History Project came about after chatting with some people at Stanford who I'd gotten to know because of my book.
We'll get to that one. That will be the third story.
That will be the third story.
Yeah.
But because of that book, I had made some contacts at Stanford and said to someone, I really think I would love to give people the voice I didn't have. And give people an opportunity to talk about their disabilities. Now, I only realized Crohn's was a disability, say, 10 years ago myself. So I've kind of had a series of awakenings and using my voice more myself. But interestingly, someone pointed out, as I was discussing this recently, my book, I really wanted to find correspondence for my book, which we'll get to,
yes.
but where people talked about their health or disabilities, couldn't find one. So I think there was also a little frustration that I never found one. So here's another way to get people's stories by starting this oral history project. So I suggested to the head archivist, I said, I'd love to do this. And he just turned around to me. His name is Josh Schneider, wonderful person. And he said, Al, this is so important. And that was just it. We were off and running. We've now interviewed about 17 people. The interviews last from 2 to 4 hours.
And disabilities range from what to what?
Crohn's disease, as someone who's in a wheelchair for a variety of reasons, people who are born with certain diseases or conditions or have an accident later on that brings something on, such as blindness or a spinal cord injury, the gamut. Yeah.
Now, have you found that Stanford, that's the one I guess you've been studying, but maybe other colleges as well, they have some improvement to do in terms of dealing with students with disabilities?
All colleges do. Yeah. And you know, you had the Americans with Disability Act came out in 1990, right? So, you know, since then there's been a progression, but yeah, definitely.
Starting with more bathrooms.
Starting with more bathrooms.
You know, starting with more bathrooms every place when you think about it. You know, you'll go into a restroom and you got to wait. I mean, especially the women. I mean, there's so much that needs to be done. I mean, is the Restroom Association on top of that? Because women's bathrooms,
yes, they are.
I mean, you know, I remember when they built, you know, what started this is San Jose Arena, and now it's, is it still SAP Arena? Whatever it's called now. They finally got it right, I thought, with women's bathrooms there. There are so many stalls at that facility that you really, it looks like the line is long, but boy, it moves.
Right.
But so much needs to be done in the area of just having more restrooms.
Well, and you know, speaking of colleges, on all college campuses, so many bathrooms, and probably high schools too, are closed over the weekend. And you're walking through, just taking a walk around the perimeter of campus or whatever.
Los Gatos High School, where we are.
You can't find a restroom.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
And I have a thing, I can't do porta potties. I will hold it for 3 days before I go into a porta potty. Obviously, you don't have that luxury.
I don't have that
luxury. But yeah, porta
yeah.
potties, I don't know what the deal is, but I don't want them. I want a restroom. I want a clean restroom, which is a whole nother issue. We got to talk about the third story.
Can I say one more thing about the disability at Stanford Oral History Project? I just want to say it's part of the larger oral history program at Stanford, and they have one on women and interview emeritus professors, and so this is one pocket of the oral history program, and it's an extension of the Stanford Historical Society, which I want to thank them for.
So you have a book next to you, and I haven't had a chance to really look at it closely, but I just love the whole idea. Letters from Stanford.
Letters home from Stanford.
Letters home from Stanford.
Yeah.
And it is just, you wrote it, what, in 17? I think it came out in 2017. And what I found just looking at the cover that was so amazing is you had from 125 years. Where did you collect all these letters going back in time?
Well, I went to the university archivist, and they already had a lot of letters. There's a Stanford student letters and memoirs collection. And I said to them, you know, if you're willing to team up with me, I'll help you get some more letters. So we spent a couple of years putting feelers out through various campus organizations, alumni groups, etc., and just personal connections, and got more letters. And then we also, which I'm proud of, we were able to add electronic correspondence to the collection, and there had never been any before.
Right.
So we also got emails and texts from more recent alums and current students.
Now, when you went to Stanford, your hometown was in Southern California. Did you send letters home, or you emailed, or you just phone called?
I phoned, and I wrote letters, but not as many as my mother did. And the book really kicked off because my mom, when she left for Stanford in the 40s.
Your mom went to Stanford too?
She did.
What a great story.
And she's standing on the platform at the train station in downtown LA, and my grandmother says to her, 2 letters a week or I'm yanking tuition. And my grandmother meant business. So my mom wrote home dutifully 2 times a week for 4 years, and my grandmother had the foresight to then keep each year in a volume, each year of letters. So we have those 4, and then my volume is 1.
You only wrote home once a week?
Well, no. I only filled 1 notebook. And my mom even had to put birthday cards and things in there to kind of stretch that out. But I realized when I was poking around in my mom's letters in my late 20s, so then kind of a young alum, I always thought our worlds and our experiences at college and being a young adult were so different. Well, guess what?
They weren't.
There was a lot, I had to admit.
Oh my goodness.
There was a lot of similarities, some differences, totally, in the environment and things going on in the world. But in terms of college experience and coming of age, a lot of it had not changed.
So for all these moms and dads
Yeah.
whose kids are just going off to college,
Yeah.
who will do the phone calls, probably not the emails and the letters, what letters just transcend any college no matter where you are?
Okay, well, I picked out
Did you?
a few
Oh,
for
good,
you.
good.
And I've got some one-liners.
I may start crying. You know,
There
my
is one-
daughters never wrote me letters, but to this day, they call me every morning to say good morning.
Oh,
and part
nice.
of it is when I had my radio show and I was at work at 3 a.m.
Okay.
Every morning they would call me to say good morning,
Okay.
or vice versa.
Okay.
And to this day, and they're 35 and 31, they still call me every morning to say good morning, and a few more times during the day to whatever.
Maybe start recording those.
I
Or
should.
to keep
I should.
voicemails.
But give me
Okay,
some of these.
So I'll give you some of the one-liner. Okay, this is by a young woman, and she's writing her mother home at home in Iowa, and her mom is going to come to campus to visit.
And what year was this? Do you
I'm not
know?
going to. I'm going to ask you to
Okay.
guess.
Oh no.
Don't kiss, and in parentheses I have me, because don't kiss and talk out loud in the library when you come. And I've done a lot of talks on the book in the last few years, and I always ask audiences to guess. So if you don't mind, Lisa.
I'm gonna guess that's like 1945 or something.
Okay, I had one person say, oh, somebody texted that last fall. March 22nd, 1894. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay, that's a good one.
that's a good one.
yeah.
Please send is, and I'm not sure if they put up this one image I sent you all where the young man put write, W-R-I-T-E, and he typed it with a typewriter.
And that was a Stanford student?
Yeah. it's-
Okay.
I mean, he.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And above it, he said, please send what I asked for. The two most common words put together, please send, across generations.
And then the third one was money.
It was usually money. Yes. Okay, and here's one. The first chapter of the book is called First Letters Home. So it's all about the freshman experience, the first few months of school. So this is from a young man from Modesto to his parents. I haven't met anyone from Modesto yet, but I know a guy who knows a girl he thinks is from Modesto. And then he has a question mark after it. He's searching for connections,
Sure.
right? Like, where do I fit in? Oh, I might know someone who thinks he knows someone else from Modesto.
From Modesto.
Yes,
yeah.
that's
Oh my
that's a good
goodness.
one.
Couple more.
A couple more. Okay, this one does pertain more to Stanford, and in particular the Stanford-Cal rivalry. But I will say this could be Ohio, Michigan.
Well, and we
they're
all know.
But we all know in this area
We all
it's
know that
Stanford-Cal.
rivalry, yeah.
So in 1918, Stanford had just lost to Cal 67-0. And
Close game.
there were some soldiers on campus on the Stanford team. It wasn't all students, so people like to quibble about whether or not it was an official game.
Sure,
But the fact
sure.
remains, Stanford lost 67-0.
Big time.
So this woman named Hope Snedden writes her father in kind of wrapping up her paragraph about the game. All the same, I'm glad I didn't go to Berkeley. So that's a fun one.
That's a fun
And
one.
how about I maybe do a little longer one to
Okay,
wrap up
okay,
this
okay.
time? And this is written by someone in the 70s, 79, and she is about to graduate. And this chapter is called Final Letters Home. And not surprisingly, students get a little more, sometimes get a little more reflective. Dear Mom and Dad, actually, the biggest news is that your youngest daughter is now a graduate of Stanford University, if I passed everything. Usually I walk around without being fully conscious of everything around me, but last week I really tried to be aware of the campus. It really is pretty and it holds so many memories. It was nice to just walk around the quad and think of different classes I've had in the rooms and all that. As I looked around, I also realized that it was exactly 5 years ago to the very week that I first came to Stanford.
Oh, and the poor couple had to pay for 5 years at Stanford.
Well, she's very appreciative of that. I've thought a lot at the ending. I've thought a lot about you all too. Our relationship has changed a lot since I've been here, and I think it's gotten stronger. Things haven't always been easy, but I do appreciate your support of my decision to come to Stanford and my decision to stay. I know you all were behind me, and that means a lot. I love you both very much. I guess this is the last letter you will get from me from Stanford. It's been a good 4 years. Thanks.
Oh, that's a great one. That's a great one.
And it literally, she had walked around the quad kind of doing a Stations of the Cross, looking at all her classrooms.
Oh, my goodness.
And this was someone who really did have to make ends meet, and her appreciation for experience
That's great.
was lovely.
Thank you for sharing those.
Sure.
And so I assume you could still get that on Amazon too.
Yes, and it's also available at Books Inc. Everyone, and our closest bookstore to us here in Los Gatos, right, is the Books Inc. in the Prune Yard. And it's on Amazon. It's on the Stanford bookstore website.
And I know you're working on your memoir, and it's called
Gutsy.
Perfect.
No,
I have had such a good time sitting here with you. I've never talked publicly about diarrhea before, so this was a first for me. I'm not even sure if I really could spell it.
Well,
let's Diarrhea.
Well done. You're off to the spelling bee, Lisa.
You know, I was a smart speller in elementary school.
Yes, but it is a tough one.
It is a tough one. But you have been chock full of information. I think you've helped out quite a few people today.
Hope so.
And it's really been a pleasure. And when you get that novel done, Miss Gutsy, you're coming back and sitting next to me again. You're a delight.
Okay,
you are
thank
a delight.
you so much.
Alison Davis, one of us. She lives here in Los Gatos, so maybe you'll see her walking around, and when you do, say, I got you covered. Or you say, I got you covered. What a delight. Do you have somebody in your life like Al? If you do, please nominate her. Nominate him if he's an Al too. Community storytelling at its finest. It's from you people and your stories. So you go to kcat.org, nominate, and that's the end. You'll be sitting next to me. I'm Lissa Kreisler, and thank you so much for being with us today at KCAT TV 15.